Hello, and welcome along to the stream tonight. I hope that anyone who's out there is doing well. So 2 weeks ago, I did my first stream in a long time. And the intention after that stream was to get back into a routine of streaming. And I promptly failed at that because I didn't do a stream last week. I don't remember the ins and outs of exactly why that stream didn't happen, but it didn't. So the intention is that we're back onto it tonight. So I have got a few things lined up that I need to look at. I have already been pinged, nerd-sniped something on Twitter from Mattias, suggesting that there's some PRs in the Cake repository that need to get looked at. So I will take a look at. I'm going to take a look at those. But there's also some work on Cake.Recipe that I want to look at. The next kind of goal for Cake.Recipe, which is what we shipped 2 weeks ago. We shipped a new version of Cake.Recipe which targets the latest 1.x version of Cake. So the next goal would be to get Cake.Recipe building with the latest 2.x version of Cake, so that it can be caught up effectively. And a couple of things I need to figure out about that. I did ping Jericho, the maintainer of Cake.Add-in Discoverer, about that. I didn't get a response, but it was only last night I pinged him, so I'm not holding that against them. But it would be good to figure out what needs to happen so that Cake.Add-in Discoverer can start figuring out which of the add-ins that Cake.Recipe uses is now ready to be used in along with the Cake 2.x. So there's a little bit of work there. But the first one I was going to look at is there's a PR opened by my colleague Bobby on Boxstarter. So I was going to go and ping him a response on this. So effectively what this PR is about is to transition away from using a CDN version of the Boxstarter repository to a URL that we are in direct control of. So this was already done on some of the Chocolatey packages, so it's a similar thing on the Boxstarter Chocolatey packages. So it's a simple change in the sense that all that's being done is switching away from the cdn.rawgit.com, moving over to img.chocolatey.org, which we directly control. Now, there's nothing wrong with the PR. I mean, the PR looks sound and it's changing the same URL in the new spec files for each of the Boxstarter Chocolatey packages. My only concern is that it's gone from a 128 by 104 image to a 71 by 61 image. I'm not sure if that was intended, so I'm just going to go and quickly leave a message on the review to ask that, basically. This PR changes the icon from a 128 by 104 pixel image to an image that is 70 by 61 pixels. I'm going to go back and put an S on the end of that. Was this intended? So I'm going to leave a comment and submit a review on that, and hopefully he can pick that up. So I haven't asked for changes or anything on that, but by leaving a comment, I'm just going to basically say to him, is this what you wanted to do? Now, there was also some Chocolatey pull requests that went in recently with regard to some maintenance changes. So we've been looking across all the Chocolatey repositories and trying to establish common baselines in terms of formatting styles for both PowerShell and for C#. Now, what we've seen is we're not consistent. So the Cake is a Lie has been looking at some of those for us, and then making suggestions as to how we can move forward. So the first thing that he's put in play is a git blame ignore refs file. Now, I've only recently known about it, and recently I mean within the last year, known about this thing's even within this thing's existence. But this file, once it's added, tracks big changes to a repository. So the example here that we're talking about is we're talking about simply changing the formatting of lots of files all at once. We're not changing any of the functionality, we're just changing the formatting. So when it comes to looking at the history of a file, specifically as to who changed a file and who did what, if you include a big commit where all it's changing is formatting changes, whether it's line spaces, white spaces, whether it's changing an open curly brace to a different line, all of those changes don't really have an impact on the usage, the running of the repository. So what the git blame ignore refs file allows you to do is it allows you to specify specific commits that shouldn't be included in any views, any git blame, any browsing on the UI through any editor that you're choosing to use. It will remove any of those ones that shouldn't be inspected when you're looking at the history. So what the Cake is a Lie has done is actually went through more than I thought he was going to be doing here. He's went through and added a bunch of other known commits where all that was being done was removal of whitespace. So I guess the intention is to start using the git blame ignore refs file going forward. So let me just read this quickly. So adds a git blame ignore refs file for use with git blame and with GitHub Web UI. Updates the contributing documentation to show how to set Git to use it locally. And then motivation and context. Ignore commits in a blame view. This is in preparation for code linting, so the formatting commits can be set to be ignored when looking at the previous changes. And in terms of testing, what he did was he compared git blame on a file on the develop branch versus on the PR branch. So if we open up this one and then we open up this one, then this is saying ignoring revisions in git blame ignore refs, whereas this one isn't saying that. So it's seeing all of these additional maintenance commits, whereas this one is just showing you a subset of those. Look at that. So, and that was a big one that I remembered. So early, just after James joined the team, he did a change to literally every file in the repository, which updated all of the copyright headers. So he appears in all the blames for all the files. Whereas what the Cake is a Lie has done is he's now included that commit directly in the git blame ignore refs file. So that license header one, this one, will no longer be included. So I like this a lot. I'm going to say that this looks good. I'm going to merge this in. Just reading the chat there from Corey and the team. So he's suggesting that we shouldn't include this one because that means we can't blame James for anything going forward. So while I like your thinking, I'm going to say that we should make a concerted effort to pull this in. I like this a lot. So I'm going to say, actually, let's do a quick sanity check. Let's go into Chocolatey. Hi, by the way, Corey. Corey's not spoken to Corey in a little bit. Actually, to quote some, oh no, I don't like the sound of that, where that's going. Chocolatey, Choco. Oh, I just deleted it, didn't I? I don't have that repository checked out. So let's do git clone github.com/chocolatey/ no, I don't want to do that from there to start with. Do it from here. Git. Whoa. Can't imagine who might have said that. Why would I not merge this? If there's a good reason to not merge it, I'm in that kind of a mood. I don't see a reason to not merge it. While you've been away, one of the things that the Cake.Recipe has been working on is preparing us for formatting rules for both PowerShell and C#. So once that work is done, we would want to include the commit of that, the hash of that commit, so that it won't go into any blames and stuff. Beautiful. I like it. So if I do this and then do git remote add upstream to https://github.com choco.git. Issue 13 might be a good one to tag on some of the other PRs that he's been working on. I'm not sure what issue 13 is, but I'll come back to it in a second. I'm not sure if I've got GH included installed. And I do. Git GH repo clone. See, I'm going to go and do that actually, because I'm not in the habit of using GH to clone the repository. So let's just do that. So what Corey is suggesting is GH repo clone get 13 choco. So what does that do? So obviously cloning the repository, and then if I cd into choco, git remote -v. How? Ooh, okay. So that did it for me. Okay, so I was going to say, how did it know to do that? But it did it because that's where the fork comes from. I'm going to start using. I need to start using that. I do need to start doing that. So let's do that. And then I'll see what Corey is describing. Define the naming conventions and formatting. Oh, I see. So there's specific. Okay, so basically we're going to codify. So I'll bring it up in a second. I want to make sure that we're all on here. So there's some changes in upstream that I don't have. So git fetch upstream, git rebase upstream, develop, git push origin, and then we'll do gh pr list, and then I'm going to tell it I want to go against the upstream one, and then gh pr checkout, which is 2798. And let's just sanity check that that's coming off of where I think it is, which is the root of develop. And I'm going to say GHPR. What does it? Can I do it from the command line here as well? Create view. Merge a pull request. Can I do that then? So GHPR merge 2798. Does that work? I'm tempted. Let's do it. I'm in that mood. Pull request is not mergeable. The base branch policy prohibits a merge. To have. Oh, look at that. It's even being clever. I like it. So it's telling me I can't merge it, because not all the checks have passed. So not all the checks have passed because it's not been reviewed. Okay, so can I do a review from the command line too? Oh, you can. Add a review to a pull request. Okay. What happens if I do that? Oh, look at that. Okay. So I'm going to approve it then. Review body looks good to me. E to launch notepad or, okay, fine. E. Looks, that's a little bit excessive. Okay. Run with it. And then submit, yes. Oh, look at that. And then we'll merge it then. Oh, it's exciting times. Create a merge quest, create a merge commit, rebase and merge, squash and merge. Now, I typically do a merge commit. So I'm going to say, hey Mattias, how's it going? I haven't forgotten about Cake. I'm coming back to it. Don't worry. I'm doing this one first. Create a merge commit. What's next? Use arrows to submit. Edit commit subject. Edit commit message. I'm just going to submit it. Merge. Oh, look at that. Genius. Look at that. Okay, so we've now got a merge, a git blame ignore refs file in the root of the develop repository, the root of the develop branch within the Chocolatey Choco repository. So I'm going to say that we are. No, I don't. No, I'm not going to do it. I was going to say we're going to put it on a set of release notes, but we're not. So we'll just leave it as a maintenance commit only, ready for usage. So I like that one a lot. And then the next one, let's just go back to this one. PowerShell formatting you're saying it should be included against issue 13. So let's have a look at that then. Close that, and let's have a look over here at issue 13. I thought issue worked, or issues? It is issues. Define the naming conventions and formatting. That's an old issue. This will be used when accepting PRs as well as what we should be used for by core committers. Style cop, FX cop. That's an old issue. Simply put, normal recommended conventions differing with namespaces are lowercase, methods are lowercase. Can arrange a get together and talk through that perhaps works. Very old. Where did this get to? Oh no, he's already. The Cake.Recipe is aware of this. Oh no, he has already linked it. I haven't read through all of that. Or did Corey just put those two together? Oh no, he's done it as part of 13, look. So he has already linked it. So this one is all about adding in, oh no, yeah, I'm not doing this PR just yet. So this PR is contingent on an update to the Chocolatey Cake recipe, which includes usage of PS Script Analyzer, which makes usage of a default PSD1 file where all of the PowerShell Script Analyzer defaults are set up as per discussion that we had within the team. So this one, I'm not going to touch this one with the barge pole yet, but as an example, let's find a good example of what's happened within this PR. Yeah, anything casing of commandlets. Get content rather than get content. If statements should all be in a standard bracing structure. So it's the first closing brace on the first line, the opening brace on the first line, and then step down onto the next line. There was a little bit of pushback regarding the default, but we came to a conclusion. So there's lots of changes because PowerShell Script Analyzer has taken a look at these files and suggested changes. So for consistency and maintainability and all the good reasons, there is a PR that has 87 file changes in it that needs to get reviewed. So I'll be doing that at some point. What he's saying, it looks like he's just edited it. Is it contingent on them or just lines up with them? This will help so much. There's so many times where I need to dive into PowerShell and always just crumble about. So you're not the only one within the team. There's a few folks have said the same thing. I'm not sure. It's a pipe dream. Is it contingent on them? Is it contingent on what, Cody? I missed that comment, so I'm not sure what I was saying when you said that, or just lines up with them. Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean there. If you could say the question again. So it's no. So okay, is it contingent on Cake.Recipe? No. So what the plan is. So if we go over to here and look at what the Cake is a Lie has done over here, then. Dun, 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 dun. So there's another open pull request here which adds in PS Script Analyzer. So this PR, which is in the Chocolatey Cake recipe, includes a default set of rules which we as a team decided that these are the ones that we want to support. So the formatting settings.psd1 file has all of the rules that we want to include, any and all rules that we want to exclude, etc., with the settings configured the way that we want them to be set up. That's the new recommended default within any project that is built with Chocolatey Cake recipe. Now, that's not to say that you can't override that, because you will be able to write that through Cake, so you can specify your own PSD1 file, but that's the default. So with Cake.Recipe, the next version of Chocolatey Cake.Recipe installed, if it finds a PowerShell scripts and it's been told to run it, then it will run with the default rules that are configured within this PSD1 file and start shouting about it in the build log. So it's not contingent. You could absolutely go and run PowerShell Script Analyzer today yourself, but you wouldn't get the exact same rules that we've enabled by default over here. But updating the Cake.Recipe allows us. So yes. So there's nothing to stop us taking that PR as is, just with the formatting changes, on the basis that it was run from this PR, which I'm almost convinced it was. But you're right. We should update Chocolatey Cake.Recipe first. The reason that we're not in a position to do that is for reasons that I wasn't really going to talk about on the stream tonight. But basically, the intersection of .NET, then invoking Cake, then invoking PowerShell, to then invoke PS Script Analyzer, means that the error code isn't going all the way back to Cake properly. And while we could just go and figure it out, there's a couple of reasons I don't want to do that. The first is that I actually want to create a Cake.PS Script Analyzer add-in, which will use the .NET assembly version of PS Script Analyzer rather than the PowerShell module. That will give us a little bit more control in terms of the exit codes that are coming back from it. Then once we have the Cake.PS Script Analyzer add-in, the idea would be to then create a add-in for Cake.Issues to take the output from that PS. This is to take the output from the Cake.PS Analyzer and feed that into a file that Cake.Issues can then read, so that we then get a single pane of glass view across all of the errors that we have. So whether that's from MS Build, Style Cop, Resharper, Markdown Lint, and then PS Script Analyzer, all those things. So I want to get two add-ins created, one for Cake.Issues, one for a straight up Cake.PS Script Analyzer. Then once both of those things are in play, we then update Cake.Issues to use them within Cake.Recipe, and it brings it all together. So there's a whole project there that I'm going to get to at some point, but that's not today. So what I was going to do next then was, having reviewed that PR, let's go and have a look at what Mattias was talking about over on Cake and see if there's any low-hanging fruit there. And if there's not, I have a plan on figuring out what to do with Cake.Recipe and starting to get Cake.Recipe building against Cake 2.x. Whereas at the minute, Cake.Recipe builds against Cake 1.x. The plan is to start having it build against Cake.2.x. It's going to come back to bite me, that quote now, isn't it, Corey? My mouse scroll wheel has been playing up something chronic at the minute. It's not scrolling properly, and I don't. Sometimes it just stops scrolling, and I'm now in a period where it has stopped scrolling, and it's more than a little bit annoying. A YOLO better. YOLO looks better. So I saw this one. I saw you created that one, Mattias, but that's in draft, so I'm going to promptly ignore that one. Oh, you did request me to look at that one, but I see that somebody's already approved it, so let's take a look at that one. And some of these ones were on me to have a look at as well. So let's start here, shall we? Improve the POSIX support. So if it's already been approved, why is it not merged? So Martin's approved it. I asked the question about whether it was a breaking change, and you responded to say that under your impression. So let's do this. Sounds good to me. So let's comment on that and resolve it. And it was a similar comment for this one. Don't think so. Interface untouched, created through inversion of control, container. So only used before add instance initiated. So okay, fine. Sounds good to me. So let's get that resolved. Fine. So they're all there, but no conflict from the base branch. But let's have a little sanity check. So we're up here at organizations, Cake, and Cake is still there. So let's do cd Cake, Git check out, develop, Git fetch upstream. This is going to be a little bit out of date, I suspect. Git rebase upstream develop. 103 commits. It's been a while since I've done anything over there. GHPR checkout E945. Sure. And then let's have a wee look. Beautiful. So it's up to date. And let me just remind myself about what you were doing in here. So this PR from Mattias was about improving the handling of native libraries. In our case specifically, the libgit2 sharp DLLs, which with the release of, so GitHub Actions have released support for the latest Ubuntu, and there are known issues with the assemblies loading over there. So we had previously pinned to an earlier version of Ubuntu, but now this PR should address that issue. And what it does is it attempts to load the DLL, and if something goes wrong, it falls back to an earlier usage. So that's why there's now a load Unix library 1 and a load Unix library 2, which were defined somewhere. Make it a bit smaller so I can see it on this. So those were defined further down here. Yes, so it's a p invoke. So there's now two p invokes where there's one before. One is the load Unix library 1, the other is load Unix library 2. They're both pointing, or one's pointing at libdl.so and the other one is libdl.so2. One comes out of the box in Ubuntu, the latest, but the other one doesn't. So the idea is we attempt to load the first one. If that doesn't work, we attempt to load the second one. And then if all else fails, we gracefully stop. That's my summation of what's going on here. So I'll just remind myself about what was happening. So all of that one was just about the log file, or passing in the log. That's a removal of a stray namespace. I can let that slide. This package reference is contingent on whether it's a .NET Core app 3.1. Fine. I don't have any objections to that. And then if it's a .NET Core app 3.1, then we do one thing, which is to use that, which must be part of that package. Otherwise, we use the new built-in runtime identifier. Again, no objections to that. The loader was just taking in the log. That's a new integration test, and the integration test is using Cake.Git as an example, and then attempting to run git hash uncommitted changes, and when running on Ubuntu that would fail because it's not being able to load that assembly. But now that it's running on all of those in GitHub Actions, so we go right way back to the top, then it was building on that but it was building on 2204, what it wasn't before. So all of that being said, and the fact that Martin is happy with it, I'm going to approve that. And I'm going to say happy days. And we're going to say Mattias ERT. Thank you very much. Okay, so if we scroll back up and it fixes that one. So that one is a bug and it's included in the next release, which is 2.3. Happy days. Okay. And then Mattias is saying 3948 should also be ready for review. So if it's ready for review, can we take it out a draft, or is it no longer a draft? It's no longer a draft. You've just changed that, haven't you? Yes, you did. Okay. Well, I'm going to assume, are you in a position to rebase that, Mattias? Or is it something you would like for me to do? Lots of words in this PR. What's this doing? Easier way to read. Oh, I saw you mention this. This was the one that came from Raheen, wasn't it? Rehan, sorry. Raheen. Rehan. Discussed in a discussion. I'm executing a process and reading the output like so. Start process with arguments, set redirect. This is pretty cumbersome. I'd really like for something simpler like simple exec, built into Cake. Build the alias would include yet another dependency. So await, read, async. Ooh, that's pretty. So that was the issue. I'm assuming you've assigned that to the 230 milestone, which you have. You're out walking. I'll rebase your PR for you then. How does that sound? Let me do that just now before I forget now. So if I do git checkout develop, git fetch upstream, git rebase upstream develop, git push origin, git branch minus D feature, that one, phpr checkout 348, git rebase on develop, git push -f. I'm force pushing to your PR branch, Mattias. So just fair warning. Command aliases in this PR are between start process and the out-of-the-box typed aliases. It lets you benefit from Cake's built-in tool resolution, making it easier to support tools with different executables, i.e. on POSIX and or on Windows, or installed using tool directive. It will default fail the build on non-zero exit codes, providing more convenient access to standard output and error. Intentionally didn't seal the command settings, as one possibility could create one's own type settings with defaults for reuse. Settings class in general makes it easier to reuse a tool across tasks, but there are also alias variants that just take the tool executable names. PR also adds some tool settings extensions, making it easier to work with tool settings in customization scenarios. Examples for just executing tools. Example with process builder, so that's what has to be done today. So we have to include the package, then we do a command, new DPI, oh I see, okay, so you're specifying those two. Then we're doing the things, and then example with implicit argument builder. So in there we are command.net with version, fine. Example specify expected exit code. Ooh, like that. Ooh, like that a lot. Example settings customization, .NET.exe settings customization. Okay. I was going to say with, okay. So, I'm confused as to what with toolname does. What does with toolname do? Is that just for the output? And then we're appending tool onto the end, fine. Example usage, example reusable tool settings created in setup. Reusable tool settings, command settings equals toolname DPI. Tool executable names is that. Example with process argument builder. Here's the settings from above. Do the stuff. And then example with implicit process argument builder. You get output table analyze. Fine. Examples handling standard output. This is really what it came from. Sets the tool name. Mattias has answered my question I asked earlier, as what's with tool name. Set the tool name generally set by tool runners, but this is generic. That's the tool name. I think I see what you're talking about now. Okay. So in here, what we're saying is command var output, var process argument builder, blah blah. Package references is just then standard output. Oh, I see. I couldn't see it for looking there. So it's got out var standard output, and that's what we're then using down here. So we're deserializing that output example with implicit. So it says var out is implicit standard output, then we're deserializing that. Example with settings customization, lots of that. Okay. Reusable tool settings created in setup. So again, we're creating a settings class and we're using that with the argument builder with lots of stuff in it. Fine. And then we're using the standard output that was a second parameter. And then the record, fine. And then for handling the standard error, there's another output variable to then be able to do the stuff. And then example with reusable tool settings created and set up. Okay. So I based on the examples, I've got no problem with what's being discussed. The only thing I would be concerned about is in the example that we're given here, it's using read async from an explicit command or a single command. Now, I understand that there is the ability to use the term. Let me get the terminology right here. Terminology that was used was with implicit process argument builder. So we can run a command with settings from an implicit argument builder. I'm okay with that. In this example, they returned a. I'm going to get my terminology wrong here. They've returned or they're using a variable that's using the deconstructed output from the read async method directly into two local variables. One being standard output and the other being standard error. So I was going to say tuple, but I wasn't sure if that was the exact right usage. Is there not some other term that's used for the deconstruction of the output to the defined variable? There maybe isn't, and maybe I'm just overthinking it. So my question then is the output of the new command something that can be directly deconstructed into these variables, or could it only be done via the output variables? I could go and look at the code to answer that question, but you're also on the line, so let's have a quick look at what's going on in these changes. The fact that my scroll wheel is not working is going to be a tad annoying. So maybe wait for a response on. Okay, so you're saying it doesn't use tuples. So actually, I'm not against it. I'm just conscious of the request that came in from the discussion, which said, was there any other discussion? I think a generic tool alias that takes an I collection for tool resolution would likely be a good addition. What I've currently used is a helper method to include in my scripts. Then use something like this, which is command path blah. To add to this, it's currently an extra step to check the exit code. It'd be nice if process settings had a throw if non-zero exit code property. I don't know, is that something that made it in? Oh, you did a expected exit code. So, and what did you did comment on that, didn't you? You commented earlier that said it will default fail the build on non-zero exit code, providing more convenient access to the standard. And that's basically what was being requested. Throw if non-zero exit code. Yes, and then there's like optional expected exit code. So if the exit code is non-zero by default for reasons, you can specify that the expected exit code is this, so that it doesn't throw the build. Okay, I'm okay with that. Okay, let's go and have a look at some of the code. So quite a lot of code in this one. So let's start at the bottom and we'll work our way up. So we're adding in some integration tests, command aliases.cake, and is dependent on command aliases, fine. This is the command aliases.cake, and this is the integration test. So let's see what these are doing. Whoa. So we are setting up a context, which is our command settings, which is .NET and .NET.exe. Then we are specifying that we'll come to the extension settings in a second. So integration tests, context.command, settings.toolname executables -- version. Task command does command settings, those fine. Given when then, settings version. Given expected standard output description, list tools, .NET usage options. When exit code, context.command, tool names executable, standard output, tool list -h. Then assert that exit code is 0, and then assert.starts with the expected output and the standard output, normalizing for the line endings. Fine. Given expected standard output from that same list, fine. Exit code 0 starts with the same. So the difference there was one was standard. Oh, it's got the tool executable names been passed in rather than the okay. Go back up to the top. Gotcha. Okay. And then command standard error, standard output description install usage, required command was not provided. And then in here we are saying just tool with the other one isn't there. So the expected exit code in this case was 1. Starts with and equals, fine. settings, const, required command name is not provided. And then you're using the Fluent API with the expected exit code, so that the expected exit code is equal to the result. The result is that, but it's expected the 1, so therefore it doesn't error out. Fine. Okay, so integration test makes sense to me. Let's have a look at some of this other stuff. So, script conventions, that's just including the default includes, isn't it? Yeah, default namespaces. We are putting in alphabetical order, love it, and adding tooling, fine. Unit tests in here. Unit tests on the extensions should call with tool settings. So here we are dummy tool fixture, file path, beautiful. With tool settings, we're expecting that the tool path on the exe is equal to that. Fine. Should set toolpath. Toolpath to toolpath. Should set timeout. Timeout. Fine. Should set working directory. Working directory. Should set no working directory. Okay. Should set no working directory arg. Inline data true and false. That is the no working directory. Setting it for both that one and that one. Fine. Should set argument customization. Argument customization. Fine. Should set environment variable. With environment variable. Environment variable key. Should set handle exit code. Extension method. Fine. Should set post action. What's a post action? Oh, after it's run the command, it'll then go off into something else. Okay. I haven't seen that one yet. I didn't see that in any of the examples, but I'll come back to that. Set up processing settings. Fine. Expected exit code 0, 1, and 2. With expected exit code. Handle exit code. Work through the result. I'll have to go and look at the dummy tool fixture to see what it's doing at some point. Back to that. Fine. Command settings extensions. These were the ones that we're just looking at with executable names. So with tool settings dot tool executables is equal to there. So it's just a straight shim to that. Sets the tool name. Tool settings, a tool executable name. Settings, executable name, and with tool name. So I'm going to say that that is not right. This should set the executable name. Should this be sets the executable name? The reason I say that is because the extension method below is called with tool name, and the summary is sets the tool name, but in the with executable names it is tool name. So something is not quite right there. There should either be an S on the end of it, or it should be set the executable names. So I'll leave that one with you to fix. So we're happy with that. What do we got here? Command settings derives from tool settings, so it gets all the same properties that tool settings has, but it has an additional gets or sets the name of the tool name property, gets or sets the tool executable name, gets or sets the tool executable names. Fine, okay with that one. There's a lot going on in that file. There's a lot going on in this. I'll keep going. I'm going to keep going. Command runner fixture has got tool name, fine. That's the tool executable, and this one derives from tool fixture, I'm assuming, yes, with command settings. It's default into .NET.exe with a tool name of that, and then it's running the tools, and it is. I'm okay with that. So then we've got a command runner standard error fixture. It's got a standard error running the tool, where the standard error is passed in as out variables, and the output is equal to that. Standard error is equal to that. Exit code is equal to the runner. Fine. That's just the fixture. And then standard output fixture, similar sort of thing. Standard output is set, and then the exit code is there. Fine. Okay with that. Standard output, and then we've got some extension methods on top of that. Given standard output, we set the standard output, and given standard error, we set the standard error. I'm going to say that that should not be called standard output. I think I'm going to say that that should be standard error. And then further down, we should say standard error as well. I'm going to say that just for completeness. Command runner tests. The run command method should throw if arguments was null. Argument is null, then the record exception fixture.run should assert that is a null exception with result arguments. Fine. Should throw if the settings was null. Fine. Should throw if the tool name was null. Fixture run tool name. Should throw if tool executable names is null. Tool executable names, so far so good. Should throw if tool executable names was empty. So we're setting it up so that it's an array.empty, running the fixture, is argument null exception, fine. Should call settings post action. So if the settings post action is set, and we run the fixture, and then we cert true, settings post action not called. Oh, I see. Gotcha. I see. So in the post action here is we're setting the called variable, which is default into false, to true. We're asserting that that's true, and if it fails, then we write out settings post action not called. Fine. Should return standard output. Expected standard. You're making other changes, so I'm going to say you should change that to the expected standard output too. Normally I wouldn't, but that one feels like it should say standard output. And then that'll be caught by the rename. So expected exit code fixture, new command runner fixture, output fixture, given standard output, expected standard output, run the fixture, and we expect the standard output to be the standard output and the fixture, the exit code to be the fixture's exit code. Fine. Should return standard output exit code. Expected, there too. Sorry. Standard output. Expected exit code 1337. So here we're saying handle the exit code, and we are setting the exit code to be the expect exit code. Fine. And then set the exit code to be the expected exit code. Run the fixture. Expected standard output is that and that. Fine. I'm going to do it there. I'm assuming that's a copy paste. I'm just going to keep going with it. Expected standard output. I've done it for the first one, so I'm going to do it for these ones here. And then this one, expected standard error, isn't it? I'm going to put expected standard error there. Expected exit code. So given standard error, given standard output, fixture.run, and then we assert that all things are equal. Fine. Keep going. Standard output. Expected standard error. Lines 160. What's Corey saying? 160. So I wasn't going to go through do every single line. I was sort of assuming that the rename of this variable would flow through, so it would just be a single rename operation that would then pick it up further below. So I was being lazy basically and saying that I'm not going to put a review comment on every single line. I could, but I'm lazy. So given the standard error is given the standard output, set the exit code to be the expected exit code, and then run all the things so they all match up. Yeah, pretty much. It's pretty much exactly what I was saying. And then I'll leave a general comment as well once we come back to it. So command runner. Command runner derives from tool with command settings. Command settings is settings. Initialize a new instance of command runner. Settings, the file system, the environment, the process runner, and the globber. The iTools locator, yeah, fine, okay. So settings is equal to settings. If it's not, it's throwing a new argument null, and that was verified via the test. So we saw that in action. We get the executable names from settings dot tools executable names, and then settings dot tool name. So we're overriding those from the base tool runner, which is fine. Runs the command using the specified settings. So we run the command, which does that. That then passes in the null, the standard output, and the standard error. But that's the first one that just passes in the output. So the standard error is not included. And then we run that command with those things in it. Fine. Runs command using the specified settings. Standard output, standard error. And then here we're passing in both, where we were only passing in one before. Set those things up, and then we run the command. So these are just all the overloaded methods. And then this is the final one that is private. So it does all the things, and then it runs the command. Return code -1. And then the return code is set to the exit code of the process, grabbing the standard output, the standard error, putting it into there. Happy days. And then, oh, this is an overload that's got the post action this time. So before, fine. Then if the argument is null, throw an exception. If the settings tool name is null or empty, throw an exception. If the tool executable names is there, throw an exception. Otherwise, throw it in. Fine. Okay. And then we're getting close. We're getting close. Command aliases. Now I haven't been checking for the license file. No, we don't do that in tests. Or do we? Do we include the license header on test files? I thought we included it in all the things. Let's go into here, and let's just pick a file. No, we don't. Okay then. In which case I'm okay with it not being there. But I need to go and sanity check the other ones. License header, license header, license header. Now we're being inconsistent. So why does this test have a license header but the other one, if you're going to include it in one, you're going to include it in all of them, the tests. So back up here, I'm going to say missing license header. Missing license header. Copy. And then this one needs the same comment. This one here, here, and here. This one here, here, here. That one had it. 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 That was 187. This one. Oh, that was not a new file, so that's fine. That one had it. We'll come back to it. This one. That's in a .cake file. So I'll let you off with that one. That one was an edit. Okay, so looking at the string extensions, what we're doing then. We are contained functionality related to tool settings. Provide a fluent, null-guarded tool settings action. Tool settings type, the tool settings action. tool settings. So it's just a straight pass through of here's a settings, do some stuff to it, and set some stuff on it. So this one is with tool settings. So if there's no tool settings, we throw an exception. If there's no action associated with it, we throw an exception. Tool settings, action.invoke tool settings, and then return tool settings. Fine. That's the tool path. Tool settings, the tool path, the tool settings. Tool settings dot with tool settings. Tool settings with tool path equal to tool path. Okay. Sets the tool timeout. So this goes back to some of the tests that we were looking at, which made sure that all of these were set correctly. So sets the timeout, sets the tool working directory, sets the weather, sets that doesn't read right. And we fix this up. Doesn't read right to me. Sets the weather. No, that's not right. Tool settings type, tool settings, flag for no working directory, default to true. Fine. Turns the tool settings. So that was no working directory, no working directory. Sets the tool argument customization delegate with argument customization with tool settings. Fine. Sets the tool environment variable with tool settings. See that. That's sets it's sets the environment. Would this be sets or adds? Sets or adds tool environment variable. Minor niggle. Let's delegate whether the exit code from the process can cause an exception to be thrown. Sets delegate whether the exit code from the tool process causes an exception to be thrown. Sets delegate whether handle exit code is equal to handle exit code. Gotcha. With handle exit code. Okay, I'm okay with that. Sets add delegate, which is executed after the tool process was started, with post action, with tool settings, post action equals post action. Sets a delegate to configure the process settings with setup process settings. Tool settings. Dot. Fine. And then sets expected exit code using with handle exit code function into bool. Expected exit code. So I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to leave an overall comment regarding the naming of these variables. So I'm going to grab that one and say, what's the last one I need to look at? Executes a generic tool or process based on arguments and settings. Context, executable names, tool executable names, the optional arguments. See, yeah. Example with process builder. Oh, I see where you've taken all those examples from now. Because you've just taken them out of the help documentation, which is good. But I'm going to be a little bit... I'm not sure why you've got a capital W there. We're now in the... I'm being really picky. So, but I'm going to run with it. I'm not going to do this for all of them, if there's lots of them though. I'm going to leave it as a homework exercise for you to go back and have a look at. Because I think this file's quite big. The alias here is taken is based on the iCake context, taking in a bunch of things, and then calling a sub one. Executes a generic command based on arguments and settings. Yeah. I'm not going to do them all, but there's lots of the capital W's. So I'm going to leave that with you to fix that. Fine. That then is context of the settings and the argument builder being null. You just run the command. Executes a generic tool process based on arguments, tool executable names, etc. Optional arguments, the standard output, expected exit code, settings customization with optional. Fine. Okay. Standard output, exit code. Another example, which I'm assuming that I'm kind of assuming that these examples are the ones that I've already read through. So I'm gonna not skip over them, but peruse them. Standard error, standard output, expected exit code. You know what? I'm going to come back to this one because, and I'm going to say request changes. A few I noticed when reviewing this PR. One general request. There are a few places where you use no and others where you use expected. Can we make sure to use expected in all the places? Right, I'm going to submit a review. I don't know if you're still walking, Mattias, or not. Just to recap, I have force pushed your PR branch. I've also added a bunch of review comments. Happy to take another review of that at some point, which will involve actually running it and playing with it. There's a few comments in there that need to be addressed before we could move forward. So that was a good one. Enjoyed that. Has Jericho replied to me? He has. Okay, hold on. Let me read replies from Jericho. When an important version of Cake is released, I need to update constants. As soon as I do that, the add-in discover will automatically raise an issue in the Cake.Recipe repository to track all of the add-ins references, whether they, for example, Cake.issues 872. Okay. When all the detected add-ins are deemed compatible with that version of Cake, a PR is created to update. Oh, I see. There are currently 6 add-ins referenced by Cake.issues that are not yet compatible with Cake 2.0. When these 6 are upgraded, the discover will automatically. So to answer your question, what you need to do is ensure the remaining 6 add-ins are upgraded. Okay, so what Jericho has told me about is this issue. Not a problem, Mattias. So 2 weeks ago, we updated Cake.Recipe to use 1.x version of Cake, which has been a long time coming. But now what I want to do is to update Cake.Recipe to support the 2.x version of Cake. So Jericho's Cake.addin discover tool has actually already started that process by updating or creating an issue that is tracking which add-ins that we reference are already targeting 2.x of Cake by themselves. So there's a few here: Cake.CodeCov, Cake.Coveralls, Cake.Coverlet, Cake.Figlet, Cake.Transifex, which haven't yet been updated to 2.x version of Cake. Once those things are done, then it will create an issue, or it will create a PR to update all the things. So there's a couple of things that we need to fix in here, because Cake.Figlet, we're going to remove Cake.Figlet from Cake.Recipe. So I'll have to ask what happens with Cake.Figlet. Let me just write that. Great. I'm just typing on my other screen, sorry. Thanks for the information. This is exactly what I needed to know. Quick question, quick follow-up question. What happens with Cake.Figlet? I am a way to remove that from Cake.Recipe, since this now exists out of the box with Spectre already being included in Cake. Okay, so that's kind of where I was going to go to next, and I was going to use another project as a testbed for it. So I want to start the process of updating Cake.Recipe to 2.x. So I was going to use Cake.Twitter as a testbed for that. Because if I go up here and go up here and go into Cake Contrib and go into Cake.Twitter, right, then I might have done this, I might have already done this, but let's back it out so I can get back to a known state. What did I do? And I can show you what I did. Yeah, fine. Let's reset that. So git reset hard. So Cake.Twitter itself, the add-in, is already targeting Cake 2.x. But it's using an earlier version of Cake.Recipe. So by that, I mean, if I go over to, let's just close everything down so I can get back to a known state. So let's open up code. And so it's using Cake.Recipe 2.2.1. So we need to fix that. So we need to tell it to use 3.0.1 instead, which is the latest version of Cake.Recipe. And for that to work, we need to go into the .NET tools.json and say, well, actually, you want to use the 1.3.0 version of Cake. And then if we go to the command line and we say, run that build, that's going to promptly fail. Because one of the things that we removed in the latest version of Cake.Recipe was usage of the dupe finder tool. The dupe finder tool doesn't exist anymore. It's been discontinued. So we changed that round and we didn't change it, we removed it. So in here, we've got a specific parameter that is should run dupe finder as false. Because in the old version of Cake.Recipe, running dupe finder was on by default. It was true. So we had to set it when we didn't want it. But now that thing doesn't exist at all anymore. So we can remove that completely. And I suspect that this is no longer needed. Let's just do a quick sanity check of that. Let's have a quick look at that. In here, that is the settings.cake, and that's there. So let's have a quick look at tool settings.cake file. So source, Cake.Recipe, content, tool settings.cake, 2021. Oh no, that's not been updated yet. Oh, interesting. 2021.3.1. That's not been updated yet. 2021. No, it's not. So I'll maybe have to go through and update that at some point as well. So that override can be left in play. That's fine. But having changed that, if I go back to the build here and run the build again, then Cake.Twitter is then going to be building against 1.3 version of Cake, which is where we want to get to. Then I will start editing the local Cake.Recipe files in this repository to then know if I can start the process or looking at what needs to change, overriding all the warnings and things that will pop up when I try and run a build using a newer version of Cake compared to add-ins that don't support it. I basically want to find out what's going to break. Okay, cool. And Jericho's just confirmed on Slack as well that if I remove the usage of Cake.Figlet and Cake.Recipe, then add-in discoverer will notice that that's happened and it will update the issue with the. So let's get a couple of things done then. So there's a couple of things we can do tonight then, which is let's close that off and look at Cake.Recipe. I want to actually do this one ahead of time then. So this one I'm going to look at doing tonight, which is to remove the usage of Cake.Figlet. Because it's already built into Cake proper now in 2.x because it now uses Spectre Console out of the box. So let's just prove that so that build worked. So I'm going to create an issue on Cake contrib Cake.Twitter, and we are at the 2.0 release. So let's make a 2.1 release. So let's create an issue and let's do create an issue here, and we're going to say build with 3.0.1 Cake.Recipe recipe and Cake 1.3.0. This is an internal refactoring that won't change any of the generated. So I'm going to assign it to me. I'm going to make this a build issue because that's what it is, and we'll add it to the 2.1.0 milestone. 2.10, yes, 2.1.0 milestone, submit new issue. Will be nice to set those Cake 1.0 downloads. It will be nice to see those Cake 1.0 downloads go down. Yes, it will. So it's on my list. I'm getting there. So this is 104. So if I go back to here, and I still have it open, I do go on the develop branch. We're going to put that in, and we're going to put that in, and we're going to say that doesn't work. I get one there. Copy, paste. What was the issue number? Issue number was 104. 104. Update cake and Cake.Recipe for build. Right. 3.0 in November. Well, yeah, that too, Corey. Yes. 3.0 version of Cake we're talking about there. Ahead of the .NET 7 release. Is that what we're talking about there? Possibly. There's a few things that I personally want to get into Cake before the next release. I just need to pull my finger out. I kind of hinted on a previous, I kind of hinted on the last stream. I've had very little to no desire to do anything open source related recently. I'm not going to say I've been burned out, because I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true to say that. It's fair to say that I have been prioritizing other things, but I'm coming back around. I've got a few things on my to-do list. I want to start knocking them off a little bit, Cake.Recipe being one of them. I've got some contributions in the Cake itself that I want to see getting in before the next release. And I also have some Cake.Issues stuff that I think I want to have a crack at, namely the Cake.PS script analyzer. But yeah, just other things have been taking priority lately, mainly because I haven't had much focus on open source stuff. But it's coming back. It's coming back. I do enjoy it. It's just been a case of sitting down and prioritizing. So that's where the stream 2 weeks ago and this stream has kind of been focused on. Getting back into the habit, getting back in front of OBS and Twitch of an evening, and just working towards that. So like I say, Twitter is the one that I'm going to use as the test bed for things that are in Cake.Recipe or going into Cake.Recipe. So one of the things that we're doing over here is we are starting to remove Cake.Figlet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start using Cake.Twitter as the test bed. So I'll come over here and I'll go NuGet.org and just check the version numbers. So 2.2 is the latest. So let's stick a 2 in there and a 2 in there. Right? And let's remove Cake.Figlet from the add-ins. So in Tools, Cake.Recipe, Content, Add-ins, let's remove Figlet. Right? Then in here, that was a comment from Pascal about our usage of stuff. So let's grab a using statement from here and go into our setup.cake. and put that up there. And then we're going to use the ANSI console figlet text rather than information.figlet. So that's there. And we're going to use ANSI console.write figlet fine. And then this one, if you want to check if you run on Azure pipelines on-premise or hosted, checking for build.is running on Azure pipelines is enough. So let's just grab, that's in the build provider.cake. So build provider.cake is here. And then, what line was it? 75. So Pascal is suggesting that we only need that check now. So now, if I go back to Cake.Twitter and I build with that, we might see some errors now. But those errors are fine in the context of it's maybe expected, but we'll find out. So, well, that's not good. The @var build just failed on Cake.Twitter. Why would the @var build fail? ci.@var.com. Log in with GitHub. I wasn't necessarily expecting anything to fail on that build. Upload coveralls report. Now I saw Pascal turning certain things off when he updated to I saw him updating certain things when he updated to 1.3, or not, sorry. When he updated some of his projects to Cake.Recipe 3.0, coveralls was failing and he turned them off. I wonder. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to grab that and I'm going to put that in here to a Slack message to Pascal. Did you happen to see this starting to fail when you upgraded to Cake.Recipe 3.x? Okay, fine. So back to what we're doing over here in the teardown. The context data has not been set up. That's interesting. Cake.Recipe currently only supports, oh look at that. This is the exact right thing. So where does that code live again? So that code lives in, let me find it. So we have some built-in protection with Cake.Recipe. So if you're in Cake.Recipe and you're building with a version of a non-supported version of Cake, then it tells you. So we can either ignore the Cake version switch or we can begin to turn it off. So in terms of the testing that I'm doing here, I'm going to put it off in code. I just need to find out where that check is. So currently only reports. That's in the setup.cake file. So we go back to here and look in the setup.cake file again and search in here for 1.3.0. No. Only supports right above here. Cake.Recipe only supports the build metadata. Oh, that's what's shipped with it. So that's the thing that we ship within it, which is in here. Yes. So I'm going to say that we change that manually to be that, and then we run this again. Then we get lots of warnings about incompatibilities. That's fine. But the build itself should work. And if we go back up to what we actually changed, it was there. There's Figlet outputting Cake.Twitter, but that Figlet is coming from Spectre console rather than from the Cake.Figlet add-in. So this PR that I have open is pretty much good to go. But it will fail. So we're kind of in a rock and a hard place. We can't get Cake.Add-in Discoverer to create the PR until it knows that all the add-ins support Cake 2.x. But we're not going to update Cake.Figlet to 2.x because we don't need it, because it's already in Cake. So I'm going to have to put in a change to Cake.Recipe develop branch, knowing that it's not going to build until it gets Cake. Ooh, that's an interesting place to be. But okay, let's run with it. So the PR in question had sounds like a plan. Thank you. I'll take Pascal's suggestion there. So I'm sort of hoping that if I were to go up to here and go Cake.Recipe, then up here we should have phpr list, phpr checkout 878. Okay, and then if we open up code here, then we look at the other code, which was in my setup.cake. If we go over here and look at here, content, setup.cake, then line 74 I've got in my head. Nope, clearly it wasn't line 74. It was nope, I've completely lost where it was. It was on. Oh, I'm on the wrong file, that's why. I'll get there. It was not the setup.cake at all, it was the build provider.cake. And in here on line 74, it had this. Pascal is suggesting that we don't need that. And then I remove that. We fix that. We add that. And then we update that. Although the update is going to be to 2.2 at the minute. So let's do that. So in here we can do git.ex. Let's do rebase commit. So we'll just add those and we'll do that. Then over here we'll do a git rebase interactive on develop. and we'll just fix that one up. And that, of course, git merge tool. That wasn't right. So well, I want it to be C, but I also want it to be that. I think. No, wait. What? Yes. 2.2. That's what I said, wasn't it? 2.2. Yes. Get rebase on continue. Remove usage of Figlet. Beautiful. Git push -f. There. So that should have updated this to be 2.2. Beautiful. That remove that line. Beautiful. And I'm going to say that we can merge that. So we'll wait for the PR builds to finish, and then if they all succeed, which they won't, then I'm going to merge it. Well, they might. Let's give it a try. Let's wait and see. We'll wait. License. Until tomorrow. I'm seeing messages in Slack I'm going to ignore until I come into work proper tomorrow. Let's ignore those just now. So what else? So if we get this running, then we get this set up, then the issue which is here is in milestone 4, so it's already there. So it is already there. So Jericho is saying that this line item here, Cake.Figlet, will be removed. So then we need to start the process of updating the add-ins. So Cake.TransFX is one of the ones that I am the main contributor of. I'm going to need to speak to Kim about what we do with all of these. Because I know that there's some issues with coverlet, and we need to decide what we're doing with code_cov and coveralls. So I'm going to take a note to speak to Kim about all the things. Is my pen not working? Speak to Kim about all things Cake.code_cov, Cake.coveralls, and Cake.coverlet. All add-ins need to be updated. Okay, so I've got a note of that. Oop, I saw some green ticks there. So they've all passed. Beautiful. So I'm going to say ship it. Ship it. I'm going to delete the branch. And then back to the command line, git checkout develop git fetch upstream, git rebase and develop, git push origin, git branch -d. I forget what it was called. That one. 877. Yes. Okay, so I'm sort of at a natural stopping point there. I'm just going to reply to Jericho on Slack while I remember. Okay, add in removed. Okay, so natural stopping point. Over the next duration, my tasks are going to be getting all these updated. So making a decision about what to do with CodeCov, coveralls, and coverlet. Cake.Figlet we've just removed, but I'll need to go and update Cake.Transifex and get that supporting Cake 2.0. So that'll be on. That's probably the next thing that I'm going to do. Whether I get to that now or whether I get to that later and maybe do it in next week's stream, I don't know. Cake.AppVeyor, I'm not sure who's owning that one just now. I might just do it. Although arguably at some point Cake.AppVeyor, it's been a while. Is there any open issues for it? Yeah, there's a few in here that need to be looked at. There's a few from Augusto. Yeah, I think that makes sense to have a look at and just get that updated. A bunch of open PRs about it. Yeah, that's a job for a different day. I will look at that. Not today. But that's it for tonight. That's all I've got. So if anyone's still kicking about, thank you very much for hanging out tonight. Thank you to Corey and Mattias. In terms of what we've worked on tonight was kind of easing myself back into doing stuff in an open source capacity. So we started off reviewing a PR that was in Chocolatey Boxstarter. We then went and looked at a PR in Chocolatey Choco and got that merged in to help with general maintenance and readability and long-term updatability of the PowerShell scripts within Chocolatey, and we merged in a PR that looked at hiding any commits that were formatting only from git blame and got that done. Then we went and did a review of Mattias's PR on Chocolatey, not on Chocolatey. Review of Mattias's PRs on Cake. We merged in one of them, provided feedback on another, and then we came over here to Cake.Recipe and Cake.Twitter. There are a few things in there, lots more work to do though. So my task list is back up and running, and we'll get there eventually. Okay, but that's it. That's all I've got. Like I say, I appreciate hanging out. I will talk to you on the internets. Bye bye.